guys. So Keone just had a really nice cardio and almost running for like 20, 30 minutes. And so, yeah, and proof workout, which is really good. Like,
Nice, yeah.
yeah, GM, G-Monad. Yeah, cool. So I think we're going to start our fireside chat here. So my name is Dovey. So I'm founding partner for Primitive Ventures, and we are a multi-strategy crypto firm, like not crypto, but we also cover the other assets as well. Like China is recently printing. Yeah, I so I want to start the conversation with like Keone. You started from like HFT. Like HFT is a very different when it comes to culture-wise, when it comes to vibes, and it's very different when it comes to HFT, like HFT versus crypto. Like crypto, we are trying to build this open network effect, right? Like HFT is always trying to build this like closed network effect, and so they hold all the secret, like all the trade secrets, like to their like just pretty close to their chest. And so, do you have like any like cultural shock?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Dovey, I think you work with some people, or some people on your team have HFT background
Yep.
as well. So
Yep.
definitely near and dear to both of our hearts. Yeah, just to start over, my name's Keone. I'm 35. The first 10 years of my career were spent in high frequency trading as a quant. Started at a company called GetGo, which was a OG HFT firm, for kind of first mover in the space. Spent 2 years there and then moved to Jump Trading in 2013 and was there until starting Monad at the beginning of 22. And I agree with you. I think HFT it's like a mix of like very closed and I guess very transparent. And I'll talk about each of those kind of in order. So the markets are sort of like you read a lot about the like Flash Boys or books like that, which talk about like co-location and the
Yep. Microwave.
exactly, yeah. There's microwave towers that are connecting data centers, and there's a lot of like optimization to get shortest path latency from where trading signals are maybe getting generated, like when big activity is happening on one exchange, and then trying to get that information as quickly as possible somewhere else. And so I think there's a temptation to think that it's all latency games, when really that's just one part of it. But certainly for any serious trading team in the HFT space, it is needed to really crank the screws constantly and get latencies down. So for context, when I started in HFT in 2011, the typical tick to trades, like packet come in, make a decision, send an order out, were on the order of like 10 to 30 microseconds. And when I left HFT in 22, they were a fraction of a microsecond. So that's just from constant software optimization and more recently the use of FPGAs or other hardware solutions like ASICs to really optimize subsections of the overall problem.
Yeah, but like all these are just like in-house design, right? So I believe it's based on like proprietary information, and so like that's why when like Rentec like crashed the market like back in the day, and then so I remember like my first meeting with like Jim Simons, and so like 12 years ago, and then so like he was like the only role for us like to hire is like not hire anyone with like finance background, right? And so like how do you see that can transfer to your current like crypto like journey, because like you're like so you were outsider before, and then so like crypto we have all this like quote unquote like crypto nativeness, right? So how you can blend in with this like crypto native like all the other like crypto native players, and then so that has been in the space for like multiple cycles.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think also kind of points to again some things very similar, some things very different. As you were saying, like Rentec and other leading quant firms have the philosophy of not hiring quote unquote finance people, but rather just hiring technologists or mathematicians or astrophysicists and so on. And that I think the same thing is true in crypto. Like you don't need to have like a traditional finance background. You don't need to have a master of finance or whatever, MBA. You don't need to have worked at a bank in order to build disruptive technology. I think that part of the ethos is the same, but I also agree that there's an element of crypto nativity of knowing who Degen Spartan or Kobe or Inverse Bra or like these characters, like being immersed in the culture is incredibly important as well. For me personally, just to talk about my personal journey, so my trading team was trading mostly in the traditional space for a number of years, really active, really high volume participant in a lot of major liquid pairs like the S&P 500 futures, crude oil futures, et cetera. I remember when the front month crude oil future went negative. I think it went to like negative $39 right after COVID, which was a really crazy situation. But then we started trading more and more crypto. And during that same time, I was just getting addicted to crypto Twitter in 2020, 2021, and just like absorbing the lore, the memes. It's so immersive.
Yeah, so what is your like crypto alts? Like if you can share like any like anonymous accounts and
Oh, yeah. I don't have any alts actually, or I have one, but it has like 500-ish followers. I'm not active on it at all.
okay. What's the name of your bulldog?
Her name is Anago, which is it's a sushi. It's an eel sushi. So if you know,
it's
if you
eel
know,
sushi?
yeah, because if you know unagi, so
Yeah.
unagi is the more common varietal.
Right.
The freshwater eel, and anago is saltwater. Actually, other way around. Anago is freshwater eel, and unagi is saltwater eel.
Yeah, and like there's also there's also very interesting fact about mana, and so I remember like back in the day, and probably like 2 years back, and then so you guys just get started, and then like have hard time racing, and then so still working in like New York, like small office, and how do you get like all this like very high pay like HFT colleagues that you work before, like because like we know it's like super expensive like to work in New York, and so they have very high opportunity cost like to like join you. So like it's just like they have like just like so many options, right? Like the average pay for like HFT traders and it's like easily just like 1 million, and like even for like fresh grad, right? So like how you can just after tax grad probably like just a half a mil, and so how you can convince them to work on this with you, like it seems to be pretty alien for them. Like so it seems to be pretty alien for many of my Wall Street friends and just like back in the day.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think for early stage hiring, it's about convincing the candidate about your vision and the huge potential of what's ahead by building something foundational and disruptive. That combined with honestly some positive selection bias from a lot of people will be turned off. Like we talked to a lot of people. I reached out to a ton of people. Like I sent a ton of cold LinkedIn DMs and emails in the early days to people that had sort of similar background to me, and like 99% of them would, well, not 99, but like at least 90% would not respond at all. And then even people that we talked to and like started to get in the process, a lot of them would drop, and that's okay because it actually ends up selecting for people that are really passionate about working on something really hard, like being part of a like 3-person or 5-person or 6 whatever person startup is an incredible selecting vector that actually has really positive selection. It's like one of the few places in the world where there's not adverse selection. Like I joke that adverse selection rules everything around us, but it's so true. Like like 90% of your cold DMs or more in your inbox are going to be like not really actually worth responding to. And so this is the one case where actually it filters out people that aren't as passionate about working on something really hard and foundational.
Yep. And I think the other very interesting dynamic is when you were at Jump, and so all the things that you're building is based on like a clear performance metrics and milestone, and especially when it comes to like latency, et cetera, et cetera. So like things can be pretty like linear, right? And then so you just like keep like optimizing that. And when it comes to like crypto, especially like building like a new chain, and like things can be super dynamic. And then so many of my pro co-founders like describe this as like it is like not like a CEO, so it's like more like a mayor. Like I have to manage my mini city, right? So just like thinking about that, so how can you how can you describe like what Monet is to a 5-year-old versus like someone you want to pitch from Solana and like a top engineer or like top developer from Sol and like ask them to convert to like build on Monad, and then so because you have to cover like these like 2 spectrums, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think to your first point, actually, I have 2 points in response to what you said. The first is, so in HFT, there's the notion of like when you're started, like we don't have a trading strategy, then it's incredibly open-ended and also very scary actually, because you could literally build any sort of system to like respond to packets and sort of corral all of that chaos. There's hundreds of millions of even filtering for like relevant symbols and so on, hundreds of millions of moments during the day when new information is coming in, but you need to figure out what subset of that is actually useful and how to turn that into a prediction. So that part, the creative part of like building that system initially is very 0 to 1, same as building a startup. But then once you have a working system, then you can kind of iterate. You can build a lot of like regression tests to make sure that the system's behavior on a given packet is still what you expect. Like literally this packet comes in, we feed it through a complicated neural net or whatever, and like make sure that the output, that exact number is still exactly the same. That's incredibly powerful from the perspective of being able to kind of grind the tank forward and make incremental progress. But that initial part is very, very challenging. And I think the same is true here for anyone who's building an app. Like you have so much creative freedom. Like, what are you going to build? What's the thing that will start to get more and more traction and adoption? And the most important thing is to get that first product out so that it's in the hands of users. You're getting data, you're getting feedback, and then once you're there, then you can start slowly tweaking and iterating. So I think those are still common between like that my previous experience and what what we're doing now at Monad, where there's a lot of regression tests that are asserting like, if we deploy the smart contract and then we send like this sequence of transactions against it, the state of the contract is exactly what we have what we would expect if we ran it against another network. So that's the first point. And then the second point about being the mayor of the city, I don't know. I think the goal is for the city to be as decentralized as possible so that there are actually many mayors, many people within the community that have their own audiences and opinions and are influencing the culture of the overall chain. But yeah, I agree that it's a much more multifaceted consideration compared to the problem of just like taking market data in and sending orders out.
Yeah, and I just want to zoom into the mayor point a little bit more. So now we have like so many different cities, right? And we have, so it's very similar like in US, we have San Francisco, like which known for like innovation, like hippie culture, and LA, like known for like pop culture and like Hollywood and like all that. It's like every city like has its own unique like offering, and so if we look at so whether it's like Ethereum, Solana, and like Chain, and so they all have their like very like distinct vibe, right? And like Ethereum like have their own like North Star. It's about like ultra decentralization and number of nodes, and then so like this like North Star like metrics, or just a North Star like narrative as well, right? I remember when we invested in Limada, so like the first thing one thing I remember clearly is so it's like a 6-year lockup like end to end, right? And it's a super long term, and then so now Ethereum is like talking about their 7-year like roadmap, and what is your like vision? Like, so it's so bearish. Like, if we're still talking about layer 1, layer 2, and all this like throughputs, and then like all these like performance like metrics like in 7 years, right? And so if like that's the case, I probably just like quit the space like completely. And so how do you envision like assuming like 6 years from now, and so like how do you envision like the whole landscape out there? And then so are we still talking about the same thing? And then so do you think we're going to see something like pretty massive like happening on chain?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, to the point about proliferation of so many different layer 1s and layer 2s, I'm actually curious to get your perspective on this, because from what I have seen, it's like when someone can bring something that's 10x better to market, then that's worth the switching cost, and that's worth the all of the like effort that it takes to for people to integrate into this new system. And so we saw with Solana like offering over 1,000 TPS. I know that their like white paper or whatever is 50K, but like at the present moment right now, it's about 1,000 real TPS. But that's at least a 10x improvement over Ethereum and Ethereum layer 2s right now. So that's, you could argue that that's like a reason why Solana has clear PMF. And by the way, I'm not only talking about 10x in terms of throughput alone, like it could be 10x in throughput plus user experience plus onboarding plus whatever it is. But, like for a new technology to really be significant, it does have to be significantly better. So I feel like, although there are probably a lot of layer 1, layer 2 pitch decks floating around right now for you as an investor, I feel like investors are probably less excited about those, or they're attributing like lower valuations to those than maybe they would have like a year or two ago, because there's, when there's like an infinite number of choices that are all very similar, that are not differentiated from a technology perspective, then there is actually like there should be less of a premium for that. And I think that's kind of how this infrastructure like funding, the thing everyone complains about, how this actually plays out is just that it stops being worthwhile for people to launch new, very slightly, slightly tweaked from a differentiation perspective, layer 1 or layer 2s. And it's only really foundationally different things that end up getting funded, and then it's things that have a clear way of getting to millions of users, which are ultimately applications and their specific business models.
Yeah, so I think that from investor perspective, and so first of all, when it comes to the valuation part of the thing, right? And so most investors out there, they have a very like monkey brain, and it's all about valuation comp, right? Okay, so anything quote unquote try to be Ethereum killer or like ETH competitor, and then potentially can get like a fraction of like ETH like market cap out there. And like, so why there's so much like founding premium when it comes to like infrastructure, like especially for like ETH like universe. And I think that's also what the ETH high church like try to try to signal to the market, right? And because like the ETH high church is like all about research, and it's all about all this like intellectual like higher ground, and then so like that's why like there's a lot of like premium for that, and so that's why we have been joking about all this like professor coin and like all this like PhD coin, and then so like the valuation is always about if I time travel back to 2018 2019, the valuation is like how many PhD are there on your team, and then so we would just put like $1 million per like PhD, and or just like
oh gosh, yeah,
right.
So that was where it was then, and then I feel like it's become more rational over the years. Like, do you see it getting more rational over time?
Of course. And then so like the reason being is like if you see like what Scroll TG is, right? So like that's like the top line valuation has gone down quite a bit because of like the public market, right? And so I think like investor, they're very like accounting based animal, right? So they're very accounting and like just a book based like animal. And then when it comes to the fundamental value or like the intrinsic value for like infrastructure, so I agree with you. Like TPS is important, but the thing is that whenever I ask this question, like what can be uniquely like, it is basically like do you know when it comes to like the fab, and then so now when it comes to when we are building a chip, and then so we are like heading into like 3 nanometers, right? So from 5 to 3, and then so there's not much like so beyond that, and then so we probably cannot go further like under like 3 nanometers.
Yeah, there's
and
like diminishing marginal returns.
Yeah, so like
on these things.
like this like the same. So it's the same thing for TPS. And then so if you above like certain TPS, and then what are the unique application you can build, like even if you have that much like TPS. So like that is the answer I'm looking for like all the infrastructure founders. And then so can you bring something uniquely different, given you have like 10x better when it comes to this like technical performance like metrics. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm conscious of time, and I think we'll maybe try to give a closing thought just to kind of bring this all together. So I think that at the end of the day, there's like specific pieces of technology that I see the market starting to coalesce around, and that's like specific, what have you, like specific data availability layers, specific roll-up stacks, specific data. Then there's some that are very open right now. So Monad is a technology project that is bringing to market a couple of new technologies. One of them is a new database. So I think that this new database will be something that the industry coalesces around. Monad is bringing to market optimistic parallel execution. I think that this is a piece of technology that the market, I believe, will coalesce around. Of course, I'm biased, but I think that the thing that's exciting about the modular roadmap is that it's about having these switchable modular components. And we believe in that as well at Monad. We're building these switchable modular components to build a really high performance blockchain. And I think that when we get there and we bring this to market and we've established that certain technologies are really performant and really trustworthy, then that sort of like solves a lot of the infrastructure problem. And these market standards are the standard. And then we have this incredible layer on which applications can be built where they're not subject to vendor lock-in, where they're not subject to price gouging from the base layer, the way that payment systems charge like 3% or more for credit card processing. So we get this really amazing open standards, and we have built-in payment systems and built-in user identity systems that can then bring decentralized apps to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay, Keone. So thank you very much for all the insight, and I'm looking for seeing all the developers and joining the mainnet, and probably in Q1.
Something like that. Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.